The town of Red Willow had learned to expect death more than life. Coffins passed down Main Street more often than cradles. And the wind carried the scent of dust, sweat, and gunpowder like a permanent warning. It was no place for hope yet. Hope arrived anyway, screaming into the world on a sweltering afternoon. Clara Whitmore wiped her brow with the back of her hand, her dark hair escaping its tight braid as she leaned over the laboring woman. The small room was thick with heat and fear, the air trembling with each painful breath. "Almost there," May Clara said, gently, her voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing on her bones. "You're doing just fine," May cried out again, gripping the bed sheets with white knuckles. Outside, a horse snorted. Boots hit the porch hard and fast. Then, the door burst open. Clara turned sharply. "I said no men in the—" She stopped. The man in the doorway was tall, broad-shouldered, dust-covered from the road. His coat hung open, revealing a doctor's bag slung over one shoulder. A scar traced his jaw, pale against sun-browned skin. His eyes sharp, watchful, took in the room in a single glance. "I'm Elias Reed," he said. His voice was calm, practiced. "Former Army surgeon. I was told you might need help." Clara bristled instantly. "This birth is under control." Another cry tore from May's throat, followed by a sharp gasp. Elias didn't argue. He simply stepped forward, already rolling up his sleeves. "Then let me assist." Clara hesitated, then nodded once. Pride had no place in a room like this. They worked in silence, hands moving with surprising harmony. Elias followed her lead, anticipating needs before she spoke them aloud. He passed tools, supported May's shoulders, murmured steady encouragement when fear threatened to take hold. Minutes stretched long and thin. Then finally, the sound that changed everything. A baby's cry, loud and furious, slicing through the stale air like lightning. Clara's breath caught as she lifted the newborn, tears stinging her eyes despite herself. Life strong and stubborn. Elias let out a slow breath, something close to a smile touching his lips. "It's a girl," Clara said softly. May sobbed with relief, clutching the baby to her chest. Outside, the town of Red Willow continued on, gunshots in the distance. Arguments at the saloon, the slow grind of survival. But inside that room, something had shifted. Afterward, Clara washed her hands at the basin, the water running red-brown before clearing. She felt Elias watching her. "You handled that well," he said. "You've done this a long time." "Long enough," she replied. "Longer than I planned." He nodded, as if he understood more than she'd said. "I'm staying in town. Red Willow needs a doctor." Clara turned to face him fully now. "This town breaks people." "I know," Elias said quietly. "It already broke me once." Their eyes met. Something unspoken passing between them, shared loss, buried scars, the weight of survival. Clara looked away first. "Well," she said, tying her apron tighter, "if you're staying, you'd better learn how things work here." Elias picked up his bag. "I was hoping you'd say that." Outside, the wind howled through the streets. But inside, Clara felt something unfamiliar, stirring. Not fear, not grief, possibility. Red Willow did not welcome Elias Reed. It tolerated him. Men in the saloon watched him with narrowed eyes as he passed, measuring the way he carried himself, too straight for a civilian, too quiet for a drifter. Women whispered behind gloved hands, curious but cautious. Children stared, especially when they learned he was a doctor who delivered babies instead of bullets. Clara noticed everything. She saw how Elias never sat with his back to a door, how his hand twitched at sudden noises, how he spoke gently to the sick, but rarely spoke of himself at all. They worked together, now by necessity more than choice. Red Willow had never had room for pride when illness came knocking. That morning, Clara led Elias through the narrow alley behind her small clinic, past crates and half-collapsed fences. "Don't expect thanks," she said. "This town's grateful only when you save someone important." Elias adjusted the strap of his bag. "I didn't come here for thanks." She stopped walking, Then why did you come? He hesitated, just long enough for her to notice. I needed a place where no one knew who I used to be, he said finally. Clara studied him, then nodded once and continued walking. Some truths didn't need digging. Their first call that day was a ranch hand with a crushed foot. Elias worked carefully, methodically, while Clara assisted. He explained every step, never raising his voice, never rushing. You've done battlefield work, Clara said quietly as they wrapped the injury. Yes. And this doesn't remind you of it. Elias tied off the bandage. Everything reminds me of it. She felt a surprising ache at that. By noon, the heat had settled thick and unmoving over Red Willow. Clara poured water into tin cups and handed one to Elias. You should know, she said. People will test you. They already are. They tested my husband too. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Elias looked at her not with curiosity, but understanding. What happened to him? Clara's fingers tightened around her cup. A fever. Came quick. Took him faster. I'm sorry. She nodded, swallowing. After that, folks expected me to stop. A woman alone, delivering babies, handling blood. They said it wasn't proper. And yet, Elias said softly, here you are, because someone has to do it. A shout cut through the street. A boy came running, breathless. Mrs. Whitmore, my Moshi fell. She's bleeding bad. Clara was already moving. Elias followed without question. The woman lay on her kitchen floor, pale and shaking. Clara knelt beside her, assessing the wound. She's lost too much blood, Clara said. I don't have enough supplies. Elias opened his bag. I do. They worked fast. Elias applied pressure, his hands steady, despite the blood soaking through his sleeves. Clara stitched, her movements precise. The woman survived. Later, as they stepped back into the street, Clara realized something unsettling. She trusted him. That night, as the sun dipped low and painted the town in golden shadow, Elias stood outside the clinic. You don't have to share this work with me, he said. I can set up elsewhere. Clara shook her head. Red Willow doesn't need two healers working apart. Their eyes met again, that quiet understanding deepening. The town took more than it gave, but, for the first time in a long while, Clara didn't feel like she was facing it alone. The first baby, Elias delivered alone, cried before he did. Clara stood back, arms folded, watching as Elias lifted the newborn with careful hands. His movements were steady, almost reverent, as if he were holding something sacred, and maybe he was. It's a boy, Elias said quietly. The mother wept with relief. Clara felt a strange tightening in her chest as she watched Elias place the child into his mother's arms. For a moment, the hard lines of his face softened, something unguarded flickering through his eyes. Later, when the room had cleared and the sun dipped low, Clara closed the clinic door behind them. You did well, she said. Elias let out a breath he'd clearly been holding. I was terrified. Clara smiled, despite herself. That never goes away. They walked together down the dirt road, boots kicking up dust. The town felt quieter at this hour, as if it were holding its breath. You ever think about stopping? Elias asked. Clara didn't answer right away. Sometimes, but then a woman shows up at my door in the middle of the night, scared and alone. And I remember why I can't. Elias nodded. That's why I became a doctor. She glanced at him, not the army. No, his jaw tightened. I joined to survive. I stayed because people needed saving. They reached the edge of town, where the land opened wide and empty. The sky burned orange and red, stretching endlessly. Why did you leave the army? Clara asked gently. Elias stopped walking. For a long time, he said. I thought I could fix everything. Wounds, fevers, even men who were already gone. Inside, he swallowed. Then one night, I couldn't save a woman in labor. Same age as you. Clara's breath caught. The baby lived, he continued. She didn't, and I realized war takes even when you try to give. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. I lost my husband in a similar way, Clara said. He wasn't sick long enough for me to save him. Elias turned to her, pain flickering across his face. That's a cruel irony. Yes, she whispered. It is. A gunshot cracked in the distance, sharp and sudden. Elias instinctively moved closer, his hand hovering near her arm. He didn't touch her, but the space between them closed. You're safe, he said. Clara looked at him, surprised by the certainty in his voice. That night, Elias lay awake in his rented room, staring at the ceiling. Every cry he'd heard echoed in his mind, but so did Clara's steady presence. Her strength, the quiet way she carried grief, without letting it harden her. Across town, Clara sat alone at her small kitchen table, fingers wrapped around a cooling cup of tea. She found herself thinking of Elias's hands, how gentle they were, despite everything he'd seen. It frightened her. The next morning, a wagon rolled into town, carrying a woman far too early in labor. Panic spread quickly. She won't last the night, someone whispered. Clara and Elias worked for hours. Sweat soaked their clothes. Fear hung thick in the air. Clara, Elias said quietly, we may have to choose. Clara met his gaze. She saw the weight in his eyes, the memory of past failures pressing down hard. No, she said firmly. We try everything. They did. And somehow, impossibly, both mother and child lived. When it was over, Elias sank onto a stool, shaking. Clara reached out without thinking and took his hand. He didn't pull away. For the first time since either of them could remember, hope didn't feel like a lie. The man who came looking for Elias Reed arrived on a gray morning, riding hard and angry. Clara saw him first from the clinic window, a stranger with a military coat faded by sun and war. His posture too familiar, too deliberate. Elias stiffened the moment he caught sight of him. Do you know him? Clara asked. Elias's jaw clenched. I was hoping I wouldn't. The man dismounted and strode into town, eyes scanning until they landed on Elias. His expression hardened. Dr. Reed, he said. Thought you could outrun it. I wasn't running, Elias replied. I was done. The man laughed, sharp and humorless. War doesn't let you be done. Clara stepped closer, her presence quiet but firm. This is a clinic. If you're injured, we can help. The man glanced at her, then back to Elias. He won't tell you, will he? About the night he disobeyed orders. Elias said nothing. The stranger leaned closer, left wounded men behind, chose a woman and her child instead. Clara's breath caught. That choice saved their lives, she said, and cost others theirs. The man snapped. Command wants answers. Elias met Clara's eyes, then fear, guilt, and something deeper swirling together. I won't go back, he said. The man's hand drifted toward his gun. Before Clara could think, she stepped between them. You'll leave, she said calmly, or this town will see exactly who you are. The stranger studied her, then Elias, and finally spat in the dirt. This isn't over. He mounted his horse and rode out, the echo of hooves lingering long after he was gone. That night, Elias sat alone outside the clinic, shoulders hunched. I should leave, he said when Clara joined him, before trouble follows me here. Clara folded her arms against the chill. Red Willow is already full of trouble. This is my fault. She shook her head. You saved lives. If that's a crime, then we're both guilty. Elias laughed softly, without humor. I never planned to care again. Clara's heart pounded. Neither did I. Silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. I can't lose another person, she said finally. Elias looked at her, then not guarded, not distant, but open. I can't promise safety, but I can promise I won't walk away. Her breath caught. That may be worse. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. His hand brushed hers, tentative but certain. The wind whispered through the streets, carrying the smell of earth and rain. When he kissed her, it was gentle like a question. She answered it. For a moment, the past loosened its grip, but dawn brought urgency. A woman went into labor early, complications rising fast. Clara and Elias worked side by side, moving as one. She's losing strength, Clara said. Elias nodded. So is the baby. They locked eyes. No words were needed. They fought for both. Hours later, as the baby cried strong and alive, Clara sagged against Elias. He caught her, holding her closer than before. "You didn't leave," she whispered. "I won't," he said. "Not from this." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, but inside the clinic, life won again. And so did love. Spring came slowly to Red Willow. Green pushed through dust where nothing had grown before, and the sound of babies crying became almost familiar, no longer rare, no longer feared. The town still bore its scars, but life had learned to stay. So had Elias Reed. The man who once arrived with nothing but a doctor's bag and ghosts now walked the streets with purpose. People nodded when they passed him. Some even smiled. Clara noticed the change most of all. She stood at the clinic window one morning, watching Elias lift a laughing child into the air. The sight filled her with a warmth she had once believed was gone forever. "You're spoiling them," she said, as he stepped inside. Elias grinned. "I'm correcting the balance." They worked together, as equals, now sharing decisions, burdens, and quiet victories. When complications arose, they faced them, side by side. When nights grew long, they leaned on each other, without shame. One afternoon, a familiar horse appeared at the edge of town. Clara's heart stuttered. Elias stiffened, but this time he did not step back. The soldier dismounted, older now, tired. "Command, dropped it," he said plainly. "Too many wars, too many dead." He paused. "You did the right thing." Elias nodded once. That chapter closed without ceremony, but it closed. That evening, Elias took Clara beyond town, where the prairie stretched wide and open. "I never thought I'd belong anywhere again," he said. "Then you happened." Clara reached for his hand. "I thought love died with my husband." "And yet," Elias said softly, "here it is." He knelt not with grand speeches, not with promises of ease but with honesty. "I can't promise a quiet life," he said, "but I promise to choose life every day with you." Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks as she nodded. "That's all I ever wanted." Their wedding was small. The town gathered, babies cried. The wind carried laughter instead of gunfire. Life continued, messy, fragile, and beautiful. Years later, Red Willow would be known for something rare on the frontier. Not its violence, but its births. And when people asked who delivered them, who chose life when death was easier, the answer was always the same: Clara and Elias. Together. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.